The unexpected inheritance. In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars flickered like scattered jewels against a velvet sky, there lay a planet named Syria. Syria was a barren mining world orbiting a dim sun, shrouded in dust storms that swept across its surface like the whispers of a forgotten era. The inhabitants of this harsh world were as tough as the land they worked, dedicating their lives to extracting precious minerals from the unforgiving soil. Among them was a man named Eric Suvin, an unremarkable technician who had long ago resigned himself to the monotony of his life. Eric spent his days in the mechanical rhythm of repair and maintenance, ensuring the ancient ore extractors operated smoothly. His hands, calloused from years of labor, were adept at fixing faulty drilling units and troubleshooting machinery that had seen better days. The Galactic Council, a vast governing body that maintained order across the stars, was little more than a distant name to him, something that existed in the realm of newsfeeds and legends, light years away from the gritty reality of his everyday life. For Eric, the most pressing concerns were the weather conditions and the efficiency of the mining operations. Little did he know that his life was about to change forever. One fateful afternoon, while the dust storm began to settle, Eric noticed something unusual in the sky. A metallic glint caught his eye as a sleek silver ship descended through the haze. It was a rare sight. Ships like this seldom graced the surface of Syria. As it landed, a small crowd gathered, their faces lit with curiosity and awe. Eric wiped sweat from his brow and squinted against the orange-tinted glare, trying to make out the details of the vessel. The ship bore the insignia of the Royal House of Lith, a white crescent moon cradled by a crown of stars. His heart raced as the hatch hissed open, revealing an android figure stepping out with an elegance that was both captivating and intimidating. The android's movements were unnaturally smooth, and its symmetrical features gave it a cold, almost otherworldly appearance. As it scanned the crowd with its pale blue eyes, a hush fell over the gathered miners. The android approached Eric, its voice a calm mechanical monotone that sent a shiver down his spine. "Eric Suvin," it announced, "you are hereby summoned under the authority of the last will and testament of Queen Sanara of Lith. Please present your identification for verification." The words struck Eric like a blow. Queen Sanara. He recalled the name, a distant image of an elegant ruler who had graced the galaxy with her presence, her visage broadcast in glorious colors across every newsfeed. Her death had been announced only days before, shrouded in rumors of foul play. But what could she possibly want with him? A mere technician from a forgotten mining world. A mix of confusion and apprehension washed over him as he stammered, "I have no connection to Lith or the Queen." The android's expression remained unchanged, its gaze fixed upon him with cold, indifferent patience. "There is no mistake," it replied. "Please present your identification." Trembling hands retrieved his ID chip, and as he handed it over, doubt crept into his mind. The device blinked twice before confirming his identity with a green light. With an air of finality, the android extended a scroll towards him, sealed with a deep blue wax bearing the imprint of Lith's royal insignia. "By the decree of Queen Sanara, you have been named as the guardian of Princess Leora of Lith," it stated, the words devoid of emotion. "You are required to present yourself before the Galactic Council within 10 standard cycles to formalize the guardianship. The will is legally binding, and non-compliance will be considered a refusal of the inheritance." The weight of the scroll felt impossibly heavy in Eric's hands, as if it were made of lead. Guardian of Princess Leora, the Queen's daughter and heir to one of the most powerful planets in the Galactic Empire. Why him? This had to be a mistake. The murmurs of the crowd buzzed around him, their gazes shifting between him and the departing ship, which was already lifting off, leaving behind a swirl of dust and disbelief. Once inside the familiar confines of his workshop, away from prying eyes and curious whispers, Eric laid the scroll on his workbench. The blue seal seemed to mock him with its silence. He ran a hand through his tousled hair, the weight of the moment pressing down. A thought echoed in his mind. Was this all just some administrative error? But deep down, he knew he had to find out. With a small blade, he carefully broke the seal, peeling back the elegant parchment to reveal the Queen's last words. Eric Suvin, it read, "You are not a man of great means or station, but I know you are a man of great character. I entrust the care of my daughter, Princess Leora, to you. I chose you not because of any royal blood or title, but for reasons you may not yet understand. There are forces at play far greater than either of us, and in time you will see that this task has fallen to you by necessity, not chance. Protect her, guide her, and keep her safe from those who would use her as a tool for their ambitions. With this inheritance comes a duty to uncover the truth. There is much at stake, more than you yet realize. You will soon find that there are no coincidences in the galaxy's design. Sanara of Lith." Eric read the letter again, searching for hidden meanings, clues as to why the Queen had chosen him. A man whose life had barely brushed against the outskirts of the galactic stage. Yet there was nothing more than the haunting, cryptic words, "Protect her, guide her, discover the truth." The reality of his situation began to settle in. If he were to be the guardian of a royal princess, he would have to travel to Lith, present himself to the Galactic Council, and somehow justify a claim he didn't fully understand. He felt like a man handed the keys to a starship without any knowledge of how to pilot it. Then there was Princess Leora herself, a girl he had never met, whose life had just been shattered by the loss of her mother. What would she think of him? Would she see him as nothing more than an intruder in her life, or worse, a pawn in some unseen game? When the day of the council hearing finally arrived, it came far too quickly. The trip to Lith was a blur of transit gates and shuttle docks, of drifting in and out of sleep during the long journey. When his ship finally descended through the planet's atmosphere, he was greeted by a world of breathtaking beauty, vast green valleys and shimmering crystal spires reaching toward the twin suns. It was a far cry from Syria's barren rock, a place where wealth and power seemed woven into the very fabric of existence. The council hall itself was a testament to Lith's grandeur, an immense domed chamber, lined with columns carved from rare minerals, each gleaming like starlight. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy filled the tiered rows, robed in their symbols of office, their hushed tones carrying an air of solemnity and suspicion. The atmosphere was stifling, the weight of judgment palpable as Eric stood alone at the center of the chamber, his pulse pounding in his ears. The speaker, a tall Lethan with skin that glowed faintly like polished quartz, raised his hand to call the session to order. "We are gathered to discuss the matter of the guardianship of Princess Leora," he began, his voice resonating with the practiced calm of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "Eric Suvin, you stand before this council as the named guardian by the last will of Queen Sanara. The council demands to know why she chose you." Eric cleared his throat, feeling the eyes of 100 dignitaries boring into him. "I wish I could give you a clear answer," he admitted, his voice steady despite the tension in his chest. "The Queen's will came as a surprise to me too, but I can tell you that I will honor her wishes and protect the princess. I may not be a noble, but I will not turn my back on this duty." A ripple of murmurs followed his words, some tinged with doubt, others with a hint of intrigue. One of the representatives, an aristocrat with a belled mantle, stood to speak. "Protection is only one aspect of guardianship," he said with a sneer. "A man of your background is ill-equipped to understand the intricacies of royal duty and galactic politics. How can you claim to safeguard the future of Lith's only heir?" Eric's jaw tightened. "I may not know much about politics," he replied, "but I know about loyalty. I was chosen because the Queen believed in something beyond titles and lineage. I intend to find out why." "Enough," the speaker interjected, raising his hand for silence. "The council will permit provisional guardianship pending an investigation into Queen Sanara's death and a review of the will's circumstances. But know this, Eric Suvin, your position is tenuous. Any misstep will see the guardianship revoked." As the session ended, Eric felt a mix of relief and dread. The immediate danger was averted, but the path ahead was filled with uncertainty. He had a duty now, a purpose he had not sought but could not deny. Somewhere within the labyrinthine halls of power, secrets lay buried, secrets that would force him to confront not only the forces that shaped the galaxy, but also his own forgotten past. As he left the council hall with Leora, the twilight sky deepening to a royal blue above them, Eric sensed that the real journey was just beginning. They walked side by side, yet a gulf stretched between them, neither knowing what to say. Eric could sense the tension in Leora's posture, the way her hands remained clenched at her sides, her gaze unfocused. "Did you believe what you said in there?" she asked at last, her voice soft but sharp with curiosity. "That my mother's choice wasn't random." Eric hesitated, weighing his words. "I don't think Queen Sanara did anything without a reason, but I can't pretend to understand why she chose me." She shook her head, frustration evident in her expression. She could have picked anyone, someone with experience, with connections. There's a piece missing, something she didn't want the council to know. "That's possible," Eric admitted, "but it doesn't change the fact that we have to find out what she was protecting you from." As they ventured deeper into Lith's opulent streets, they found a world that felt alien yet inviting, bustling with life and energy. Neon lights flickered over narrow alleys, laughter and lively chatter filled the air, a stark contrast to the imposing halls of power they had just left behind. Eric guided Leora to a modest inn tucked away from the main thoroughfare, a place where no one would think to look for them. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and welcoming, a stark contrast to the tension that loomed over them. They needed to regroup, to strategize, and to uncover the truth behind the Queen's mysterious death. As Eric and Leora settled into their rooms, a sense of determination blossomed within them. They were not just two individuals caught in a web of royal intrigue. They were now allies on a quest to unravel the secrets of the past and secure a future for Lith. With the memory of Queen Sanara guiding them, they would confront whatever dangers lay ahead. The journey had only just begun, and they would face it together. Shadows of the past. As dawn broke over Lith, painting the crystal towers with hues of orange and pink, Eric Suvin awoke with a start. The events of the previous day flooded back, each detail as vivid as the colors illuminating the skyline. He sat up, glancing around the modest room he shared with Princess Leora. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension and anticipation. The scroll bearing the late Queen's last wishes still lay on the small table, its blue wax seal a constant reminder of the weighty responsibility thrust upon him. With a deep breath, Eric swung his legs over the side of the bed, feeling the cool floor against his feet. He was a simple technician, unaccustomed to the opulence surrounding him, yet there was a fire igniting within, a determination to uncover the truth and protect the princess. He had been entrusted with a mission far beyond his understanding, but he was resolved to navigate this intricate web of royal politics and hidden agendas. Leora stirred beside him, her silver hair catching the morning light. She opened her eyes, a mixture of fatigue and determination etched on her features. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of unresolved grief. "What's our plan for today?" Eric stood, stretching his arms above his head as he collected his thoughts. "We need to gather more information about Lord Talion and his dealings. If he's involved in your mother's death, we need to know how deep his connections run." Leora nodded, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about what Lady Seraphina said. If Talion has allies, we need to identify them. And we need to find out more about the Guardians of the Light. They might hold the key to understanding why my mother was targeted." With a plan forming in his mind, Eric dressed quickly, donning the simple attire he had grown accustomed to on Syria, a durable outfit that allowed for ease of movement. He glanced at Leora as she adjusted her own attire, her royal gown replaced by a more practical ensemble that would help her blend in with the bustling streets of Lith. "Let's head to the marketplace," Eric suggested. "It's usually buzzing with activity, and we might overhear something useful. Besides, we could use the anonymity of the crowd." As they left the inn, The air was fragrant with the sense of fresh produce and exotic spices from the nearby stalls. The streets were alive with vendors calling out their wares, children laughing and running between the stalls, and the vibrant colors of fruits and textiles creating a tapestry of life. Eric felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. This was a world of wonder, yet it concealed layers of danger beneath its surface. They navigated through the throng, Leora's presence both commanding and inconspicuous in her simpler attire. Eric noticed how she observed everything around her: the bustling energy of the market, the interactions between vendors and customers, and the subtle exchanges of glances that spoke volumes. She was adapting quickly, learning the ways of her people, even as she grappled with the enormity of her situation. As they strolled, Eric shared snippets of his knowledge of life's history, recounting tales of its ancient warriors and scholars, of the rise and fall of noble houses. Leora listened intently, her curiosity ignited by the stories. It's strange, she mused, how history can repeat itself. My mother often spoke of the Guardians as if they were myths, yet here we are, chasing shadows of the past. Maybe the myths hold more truth than we realize, Eric replied, glancing around for any signs of danger. They could have safeguarded something important, something that could change everything. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a commotion at a nearby stall. A crowd had gathered, voices rising in excitement and anger. Intrigued, they moved closer to see what was happening. A vendor, his face flushed with indignation, was arguing with a cloaked figure. "You can't take my goods without paying," the vendor shouted. The cloaked figure's voice was low and smooth, dripping with condescension. "I am doing you a favor. The Galactic Council would not take kindly to your defiance. Pay up, or you'll regret it." Eric exchanged a glance with Leora, sensing an opportunity. "Stay close," he whispered. They pushed through the crowd, trying to get a better view. The cloaked figure was tall, the fabric of their cloak obscuring their features, but the air around them crackled with authority and menace. Suddenly, Eric felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see a wiry man with a bushy beard, his eyes darting nervously. "You're not from around here, are you?" he asked, lowering his voice. "This isn't a safe place to linger. There are eyes everywhere." "What do you mean?" Eric replied, sensing the urgency in the man's tone. "Those council enforcers," the man gestured toward the cloaked figure, "they're not just here to collect taxes. They're looking for anyone who might oppose their interests. They have a hold over the market, and anyone who crosses them disappears." Eric's heart raced. They had to be careful. They were already targets by virtue of their connection to the late Queen. "Thanks for the warning," Eric said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We'll be on our way." As they turned to leave, the cloaked figure's eyes flickered toward them, and Eric felt a chill run down his spine. They slipped into the crowd, making their way further down the street, where the noise of the market began to fade into the background. Once they were a safe distance away, Leora spoke, her voice steady. "We need to find a way to get information without drawing attention to ourselves. Perhaps we should visit a library or a place where people share stories. Someone might have heard something about Talion or the Guardians." "Good idea," Eric replied, grateful for her level-headedness. "I remember passing an old library not far from here. It's said to be filled with ancient texts and forgotten knowledge. Let's go." They walked briskly through the winding streets, avoiding the main thoroughfare. The library loomed ahead, its entrance adorned with intricate carvings that hinted at the wisdom housed within. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, filtering through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the rows of books and manuscripts. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged paper and leather. Eric and Leora were greeted by a librarian, an elderly woman with silver hair and wise eyes that sparkled with curiosity. "What brings you here?" she asked, her voice soft yet authoritative. "We're searching for information about the Guardians of the Light," Eric replied. "We believe they might hold answers to some important questions." The librarian's expression shifted, a flicker of recognition passing over her features. "Ah, the Guardians. Many dismiss them as mere myths, but their legacy runs deep within our history. Follow me." She led them to a secluded section of the library, lined with shelves that reached the ceiling, filled with ancient tomes and scrolls. Here, you may find references to the Guardians and their role in Lith's past. Be cautious. The knowledge you seek may come with risks. As they began to sift through the texts, Eric felt a sense of urgency growing within him. Each scroll they opened seemed to whisper secrets of a time long forgotten. Tales of valor, sacrifice, and the dark forces that sought to claim power resonated through the pages. "Here," Leora exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement as she unearthed a dusty volume. This one mentions a secret council formed by the Guardians to protect the royal line. It says they safeguarded a powerful artifact believed to determine the rightful heir to the throne. Eric leaned closer, his heart racing. What kind of artifact? Leora read aloud, her voice steady. An ancient relic said to reveal the true nature of the one destined to rule. The Guardians believed it was crucial in times of crisis, especially during periods of political upheaval. If it still exists, it could prove your legitimacy as the heir. As they delved deeper into the text, Eric felt a growing sense of purpose. The Guardians had not just vanished, they had left behind a legacy that could alter the fate of Lith. But he also understood that uncovering the truth would not be easy. With powerful forces like Lord Talion lurking in the shadows, they needed to tread carefully. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the entrance of the library, jolting them from their concentration. They exchanged worried glances, sensing the atmosphere shift. The librarian rushed toward the commotion, her expression turning grave. "Stay here," Eric instructed Leora, his protective instincts kicking in. He slipped out of their secluded corner to assess the situation. What he saw made his blood run cold. The cloaked figure from the marketplace had entered the library, flanked by two imposing guards. The figure scanned the room, their eyes narrowing as they sought out someone or something. Eric's heart raced as he quickly ducked behind a nearby shelf, trying to remain unseen. The tension in the air was palpable, and he could hear whispers of fear from the patrons who had been reading in peace just moments before. The cloaked figure approached the librarian, then a voice low and menacing. "Where is the information on the Guardians?" the figure demanded, their tone cold and threatening. "We know someone has been asking questions. I suggest you answer carefully." Eric's mind raced. They couldn't afford to be discovered now. Leora was still in the back, unaware of the brewing storm. He had to get her out. He quietly moved back to her side, urgency etched in his features. "We need to leave. Now." Before Leora could respond, the cloaked figure's voice rang out again, raising the tension in the room. "I'll ask one last time, who has been searching for the Guardian's records?" Eric grabbed Leora's hand, leading her toward a side exit he had noticed earlier. "Stay close," he urged as they slipped through the doorway, the library's chaos fading behind them. Once outside, they found themselves in a narrow alley, hidden from sight. The sounds of the market thronged in the distance, but here it was quiet. Leora looked at Eric, her eyes wide with concern. What just happened? "The figure from the market is searching for us, or for anyone looking into the Guardians. We can't stay in one place for too long," Eric explained, scanning their surroundings. "We need to get somewhere safe, somewhere we can regroup and think." As they navigated through the labyrinthine streets, Eric's mind raced with possibilities. They had to find a way to uncover the truth about the Guardians, Lord Talion, and the mystery surrounding Queen Sanora's death. Every step brought them closer to danger, yet also closer to the answers they sought. Finally, they found refuge in a small cafe, its entrance unassuming and its interior dimly lit. The atmosphere was calm, and the smell of brewing coffee filled the air. Eric ordered 2 cups, trying to steady his nerves. As they sat in a secluded corner, he realized that they couldn't allow fear to dictate their actions. Instead, they had to use the uncertainty to fuel their resolve. "Leora," he began, looking into her eyes, "we can't let ourselves be intimidated. Whatever Talion is hiding, whatever secrets the Guardians hold, we must pursue them. We owe it to your mother and to the future of Lith. Leora nodded, her expression fierce with determination. You're right. We need to find allies, people who can help us navigate this dangerous game. There must be others who remember the Guardians and what they stood for. As they sipped their coffee, a plan began to form. They would search for anyone willing to stand against the shadows looming over Lith, friends hidden among enemies, allies within the chaos. Together, they would unravel the threads connecting the past to the present, drawing upon the strength of both their backgrounds. With a renewed sense of purpose, Eric and Leora left the cafe, stepping back into the vibrant streets of Lith. The sun had reached its zenith, casting warm rays upon the city, and with each step, they felt more empowered to confront the challenges ahead. The shadows of the past would not define them. Instead, they would illuminate the path toward justice, truth, and a future free from the chains of deception. Eric and Leora were not merely players in a game of power. They were destined to be the architects of their own fate. The journey ahead would be perilous, but with every heartbeat, they moved closer to reclaiming not just a throne, but the very essence of hope for their people. A conspiracy unraveled. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets of Lith, Eric and Leora ventured deeper into the city, their minds brimming with plans and strategies. The urgency of their quest weighed heavily on their shoulders. They had narrowly escaped a confrontation in the library, but they knew that the danger was far from over. Where do we start looking for allies? Leora asked, her brow furrowed in thought as they walked briskly through the bustling streets. The marketplace was winding down, and vendors packed their goods, but the energy of the city was still palpable, alive with whispers and laughter. Eric pondered for a moment, recalling the conversations he had overheard during their time in the cafe. We need to find the dissidents, he suggested. There are factions opposed to Talion and the Council. They might have information about the Guardians and could help us in our search. Dissidents. Leora raised an eyebrow. I've heard rumors about them, a group that fights against the corruption of the Council. But where do we find them? I heard they often meet in the Undercity, Eric replied, recalling snippets of gossip from the tavern they had visited earlier. It's a place where those who oppose the Council can gather without fear of being silenced. But it's not without its risks. The Council's enforcers are known to patrol the area. Leora nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Then we must go there. If the Guardians exist, and they have ties to the royal family, we need to find them. The fate of Lith rests on our shoulders. With a shared sense of purpose, they navigated through the winding streets, moving toward the Undercity. As they descended into the lower levels of Lith, the vibrancy of the upper city faded. The air grew thick with shadows, and the walls were marked with the scars of neglect. Neon lights flickered above crumbling buildings, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the faces of those who lived in the fringes of society. The Undercity was a world apart, a place where the rules of the upper echelons did not apply. Here, people bartered for goods and whispered secrets in the dark corners of alleyways. Eric felt a sense of unease as they ventured deeper, the atmosphere heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Yet he also sensed an undercurrent of resilience among the people, a determination to fight against the oppressive forces above. As they wandered through the labyrinthine paths, they came upon a small gathering in a dimly lit courtyard. A group of individuals clad in ragged clothing huddled together, their expressions a mix of defiance and wariness. In the center stood a tall woman with a fierce demeanor, her voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. Lith belongs to its people, she shouted, her fists clenched. We will not bow to those who would strip us of our rights. We must stand together against the corruption of the Council. Eric and Leora exchanged glances, sensing an opportunity. They stepped closer, listening intently as the woman continued to rally the crowd. Lord Talion believes he can control us through fear, but he underestimates the strength of our spirit. We have allies, and we will not rest until justice is served. Once the crowd began to disperse, Eric approached the woman, his heart pounding. "Excuse me," he said, stepping forward. "Are you one of the leaders of the dissidents?" She turned her gaze on him, sizing him up with a penetrating stare. "I am. Name's Mira. What brings you to the Undercity?" "This is Princess Leora," Eric introduced, gesturing toward her. "We're looking for allies to help us uncover the truth behind the Queen's death and the role Lord Talion plays in it." Mira's expression shifted from skepticism to interest. "The Queen's death is a matter of great concern to us all. Talion's influence runs deep, and anyone who seeks to challenge his authority puts themselves in danger. But if you are truly seeking the truth, you might find more than you bargained for." "Then we want to help," Leora interjected, her voice firm. "The Guardians of the Light may hold the key to this mystery, and we need to know what they knew before they disappeared." Mira regarded them thoughtfully, then nodded. "Very well. If you're willing to risk your safety, there are places we can look. There are old records in the Undercity that might shed light on the Guardian's fate. But I must warn you, many have searched for them, and not all have returned." "Lead the way," Eric said, feeling a surge of determination. "We have to try." Mira led them through the narrow, winding streets of the Undercity, where shadows loomed larger than life, and the scent of dampness filled the air. They approached a hidden entrance, obscured by a tattered awning. As they descended into the depths, Eric felt a chill creep over him, a sense that they were about to uncover truths that had long been buried. Inside, the air grew colder, and the walls were lined with dusty shelves filled with ancient tomes and scrolls. The dim light flickered from old lanterns, illuminating the faces of a few dedicated scholars who labored to preserve life's history. Mira motioned for them to follow her deeper into the cavernous space. "There are stories here," Mira explained, her voice low. "Stories that have been forgotten by the Council, tales of the Guardians and their purpose. They protected our royal line during times of great strife, but their knowledge has been suppressed." As they began to search through the texts, Eric felt a sense of urgency. Each volume held the potential to unlock the secrets they sought. He picked up a dusty scroll and carefully unfurled it, his heart racing as he read about the Guardian's role in Lith's history. "Look at this," Leora exclaimed, pointing to a passage in an old book. "It says here that the Guardians had a leader, a woman named Alaris, who was rumored to possess the ability to sense the truth in others. If we can find her descendants or anyone who knew her, it might lead us to the artifact." Mira nodded, her expression grim. Alaris was revered by many, but she disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Some say she went into hiding to protect the artifact, while others believe she was hunted down by those who feared her power. There are whispers of a secret order that may still exist, one that aligns with the Guardian's original purpose. "Where can we find them?" Eric asked, feeling the adrenaline course through his veins. Mira glanced around to ensure they were alone before leaning in closer. "There is a hidden enclave beneath the city, known only to a select few. It's said that those who seek the truth may find allies there, but it is not easy to reach. You will need to navigate through the old tunnels, and not all who venture there return." "We'll do whatever it takes," Leora said, her voice unwavering. Mira's gaze softened for a moment. "Your courage is commendable. If you are truly determined, I can guide you through the tunnels. But know this, the Council's enforcers patrol the area, and the deeper you go, the greater the risks." With a nod of agreement, they followed Mira as she led them deeper into the library, toward a series of concealed doorways. They passed through a narrow archway, the darkness enveloping them as they descended further into the depths of the Undercity. The air grew colder, and the sound of dripping water echoed in the silence. As they moved cautiously through the dimly lit tunnels, Eric's mind raced with the implications of what they were about to uncover. The Guardians were not merely legends. They were part of a legacy that had been buried in the sands of time, waiting for the right moment to resurface. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a heavy door carved with intricate symbols. Mira placed her hand against the cold surface, whispering words of an ancient dialect. The The door creaked open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with flickering candles and walls lined with more scrolls and relics of the past. "This is the Enclave," Mira explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is where we gather knowledge and seek the truth." Inside, the atmosphere was thick with a sense of purpose. Individuals sat in small groups, poring over texts and discussing the implications of their findings. They glanced up as Mira entered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and respect. "Who are these newcomers?" one of the scholars asked, his voice cautious yet intrigued. "Eric and Leora are here to seek answers," Mira replied. "They are searching for the Guardians and the truth behind the Queen's death. I believe they could be valuable allies in our fight against the Council's corruption." The room fell silent as the scholars exchanged glances, weighing the gravity of the situation. Finally, an older woman with silver hair stepped forward. "If you seek the Guardians, you must first understand the risks involved. The Council will not take kindly to those who challenge their authority." "We're willing to face whatever dangers lie ahead," Eric asserted, determination shining in his eyes. "We believe the Guardians may have the answers we need." The older woman nodded, her gaze piercing. "Very well. We may have information that could lead you to the last remnants of the Guardians, but you must be prepared. The truth often comes with a price." Leora stepped forward, her voice steady. "We're ready to pay whatever price is necessary to uncover the truth. The future of Lith depends on it." The older woman regarded them for a moment before gesturing for them to follow. "Then let us begin. Time is of the essence, and the Council's grip on power grows stronger by the day." As they delved into discussions and shared knowledge, Eric felt the weight of their mission grow heavier. They were not merely searching for information, they were stepping into a battle for the soul of their planet. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and with every revelation, they moved closer to uncovering the truth that had been buried for too long. In that hidden enclave, surrounded by those who understood the stakes, Eric and Leora felt the fire of hope ignite within them. Together, they would face the shadows of the past and fight to reclaim the future of Lith. The Guardian's legacy would not remain hidden any longer, and with each step forward, they were determined to honor the memory of Queen Sanara and the legacy of the Guardians of the Light. The legacy of the Guardians. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows across the walls of the hidden enclave, creating an almost mystical atmosphere as Eric and Leora stood amidst the gathered scholars. The air was thick with anticipation and unspoken fears, a reminder that their quest was fraught with peril. The older woman, whom they learned was named Eldra, motioned for everyone to settle down as she prepared to share what she knew about the Guardians of the Light. Many believe the Guardians vanished when the Council began its purge of dissenters. Eldra began, her voice steady and commanding. But the truth is far more complex. The Guardians were protectors of the royal line, entrusted with ancient knowledge and artifacts that could determine the fate of Lith. Their legacy is entwined with our history, but it has been suppressed, buried under layers of lies. Leora stepped forward, her expression earnest. What happened to them? Why did they disappear? Eldra gestured for Leora to sit beside her at the center of the gathering. They operated in secret, ensuring that the rightful heir would always be safeguarded. Alaris, their leader, was a visionary. She believed in a future where knowledge would guide our leaders, not ambition. But as Talion's influence grew, so did the threat to the Guardians. The scholars listened intently, their faces reflecting the weight of history and hope. Eldra continued. Alaris sensed the looming danger and chose to disperse the Guardians, believing that it was the only way to protect the heir. She took with her a powerful artifact known as the Starstone, a gem that could unveil the truth of one's lineage. Many sought to possess it, including Talion, who has been relentless in his pursuit of power. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. What if Talion has already found it? Then he may very well use it to manipulate the Council and solidify his control, Eldra replied, her eyes darkening. That is why we must act quickly. If you are to reclaim your mother's legacy, you need to find the Starstone before Talion does. Leora glanced at Eric, her determination evident. "Where do we start? Do you know where Alaris might have hidden the Starstone?" Eldra nodded, her expression serious. "There are ancient texts that speak of a location known as the Temple of Echoes, a site believed to hold the Starstone. It is said to be hidden within the crystal caverns, deep beneath Lith, but reaching it is no easy task. The caverns are labyrinthine, and the path is fraught with dangers, both natural and those who would seek to stop you." "We'll take those risks," Eric declared, his resolve strengthening. "If finding the Starstone is the key to restoring order and uncovering the truth, we have to try." Eldra leaned in closer, her gaze piercing. "Your journey will test not just your courage but your convictions. You must be prepared to face the shadows of the past and the present. The Guardians believed in a code that emphasized loyalty and integrity above all else. Hold on to that as you proceed." With a newfound sense of purpose, Eric and Leora began to gather supplies for their journey to the Temple of Echoes. Eldra provided them with maps and notes about the caverns, detailing the challenges they might encounter. As they prepared, Eric felt the weight of history upon his shoulders. This was not just a quest for truth, it was a fight for the soul of their planet. "Do you think we can really trust the Guardians?" Leora asked as they sorted through supplies. "What if they've lost their way?" "I believe in their legacy," Eric replied. "They fought to protect the royal line and the truth. If we can find them, or what remains of them, we might be able to forge an alliance." Leora nodded, the fire in her eyes reigniting. "Then we'll do it together. No matter what awaits us in those caverns, we'll face it as allies." As they finalized their preparations, a sense of camaraderie blossomed among the scholars who gathered to share stories of the Guardians and their legacy. The room buzzed with excitement and hope, each scholar recounting their favorite tales of heroism and sacrifice, tales that inspired them to continue their fight against the oppressive council. "Together we will rise against Talion," one scholar proclaimed, his voice full of passion. "We must not forget the strength of our ancestors. We carry their spirit within us." When the time came to leave, the weight of their mission settled heavily on Eric and Leora. The scholars gathered around them, offering blessings and words of encouragement. Mira stepped forward, her expression fierce. "You are not alone. The dissidents will stand with you, and if you need assistance, send word. We will not let fear silence us any longer." With a final exchange of determined glances, Eric and Leora departed the Enclave, stepping back into the uncertain world of the Undercity. The atmosphere felt charged, a mixture of apprehension and excitement swirling in the air. "Let's stick to the outskirts as we make our way to the Crystal Caverns," Eric advised. "The Council's enforcers may still be watching. We need to be cautious." They moved quickly, navigating the back alleys and lesser-known paths that snaked through the city. The deeper they went, the more the landscape transformed. The glow of neon lights faded, replaced by the glimmer of minerals embedded in the cavern walls. As they approached the entrance to the caverns, a cool breeze swept through, a stark contrast to the warmth of the streets above. The entrance loomed before them, a dark maw leading into the unknown. The flickering torches on either side cast eerie shadows, creating an atmosphere that felt both foreboding and alluring. "Are you ready?" Leora asked, her voice barely a whisper, as she clutched the map tightly. "More than ready," Eric replied, taking a deep breath. "Whatever lies ahead, we'll face it together." With determination ignited, they stepped into the cavern. The air grew cooler, and the sound of dripping water echoed around them, creating an almost musical rhythm. As they ventured deeper, the walls shimmered with crystalline formations, refracting the light into a dazzling array of colors. "Look at that," Leora exclaimed, pointing to the glistening walls. "It's beautiful." "It's also potentially dangerous," Eric warned. "Stay close. We don't know what we might encounter down here." They moved cautiously through the twisting paths of the cavern, their footsteps echoing ominously. Eric kept a close eye on the map, ensuring they remained on the correct path toward the Temple of Echoes. After what felt like hours of navigating the intricate labyrinth, they stumbled upon a vast chamber, illuminated by the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals. In the center stood an ancient altar, warm with age but still imposing. The air hummed with a palpable energy, a sense of reverence wrapping around them. "This must be it," Leora breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. The Temple of Echoes. As they approached the altar, Eric felt an electric charge in the air. He reached out, placing his hands on the cool stone. "What are we looking for?" he wondered aloud. Leora examined the surroundings, her keen gaze searching for clues. "The Starstone must be here. It has to be." Suddenly, a low rumble reverberated through the chamber, and the ground beneath them shook. They exchanged startled glances as the altar began to glow, pulsing with an ancient energy. Eric stepped back, his heart racing. "Something's happening," he shouted, bracing himself against the altar for stability. The crystals surrounding them flickered, and a beam of light shot upward, illuminating the entire chamber. In that moment, they were engulfed in light, a warm and inviting glow that felt almost alive. "Stay close," Eric urged, reaching for Leora's hand as they stood together, bewildered yet entranced by the unfolding phenomenon. As the light coalesced, a figure began to take shape before them. It was ethereal, a spirit-like presence, shimmering and flickering in the air. "Who dares disturb the sanctity of the Temple of Echoes?" the figure intoned, its voice echoing like a distant melody. "We seek the Starstone," Eric replied, his voice steady despite the unease settling in his stomach. "We come in search of the truth." The figure studied them intently, its eyes shimmering like the stars. "Only those pure of heart and intention may claim the Starstone. Many have sought its power, but few have understood its purpose." Leora stepped forward, her voice strong. "We wish to protect our people. The Council has betrayed us, and we must uncover the truth behind my mother's death. Please, guide us to the Starstone." The figure regarded her with a contemplative gaze, and the light around them intensified. "Your quest is noble, but the path is fraught with peril. Talion seeks the Starstone for himself, and he will stop at nothing to prevent you from succeeding." "We're prepared to face whatever challenges lie ahead," Eric declared. "We must stop him." "Then listen closely," the figure instructed, its voice growing more insistent. "The Starstone lies hidden within this temple, but to reach it, you must prove your worth. Answer these questions truthfully, for deception will lead to your downfall." Leora nodded, her expression resolute. "We're ready." The figure raised its hand, and the chamber filled with an otherworldly light. "First question, what do you seek most in your heart?" Eric hesitated, his thoughts racing. "I seek truth," he'd answered finally. "The truth about the Guardians, about Queen Sanora's death and the future of Lith." The figure nodded, the light flickering. "Second question, what would you sacrifice for the greater good?" "I would sacrifice everything," Leora replied, her voice unwavering. "My title, my safety, whatever it takes to protect my people and restore justice." The chamber shimmered in response to her words, a wave of energy washing over them. "Final question, are you prepared to bear the weight of the truth, no matter how painful it may be?" "Yes," Eric said, his voice steady. "We will face the truth together, no matter the cost." The light around them exploded into a dazzling display, and with a resounding crack, the altar shifted. A hidden compartment opened, revealing the Starstone, a brilliant gem that radiated an ethereal glow. It pulsed with energy, and Eric felt its power resonate within him. As he reached for the Starstone, the figure's voice echoed one last time. "The truth is a heavy burden, but it is also a beacon of hope. Use the Starstone wisely, for it will reveal not just the past, but also the choices that lie ahead. Your journey is just beginning, and the shadows will not rest easily." With the Starstone now in their possession, Eric and Leora felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not merely warriors in a battle, they were the bearers of a legacy that would guide their people toward a brighter future. As they exited the Temple of Echoes, the weight of their mission settled upon them like armor. They had uncovered secrets long buried, but the path ahead was still fraught with danger. With the Starstone in hand, they were one step closer to confronting Talion and reclaiming their rightful place in the world. As they ventured back through the crystal caverns, Eric glanced at Leora, her determination unwavering. "We have the power to change everything," he said, a newfound confidence surging within him. Leora smiled, the fire of hope igniting in her eyes. "And we will. Together, we will not just fight for ourselves, but for the legacy of the Guardians and the future of Lith." With the echoes of the past guiding them, Eric and Leora emerged from the shadows, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the world above. The Guardians of their fate had awakened, and with the Starstone illuminating their path, they would rise against the darkness that threatened to engulf their home. The rising storm. As Eric and Leora emerged from the crystal caverns, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the city of Lith in shades of deep purple and gold. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of change, but as they stepped back into the bustling streets, a sense of foreboding loomed over them. With the Starstones safely secured in a hidden pocket, they were acutely aware that their victory had only just begun. "We need to find a place to regroup," Eric suggested, glancing around at the throngs of people moving through the market. "Somewhere discreet, where we can discuss our next move without drawing attention." Leora nodded, her gaze scanning the area. "There's a tavern a few blocks from here, called the Gilded Star. It's known for its privacy. Dissidents often meet there to share information." "Lead the way," Eric replied, feeling a surge of urgency as they made their way through the winding alleys, weaving past vendors packing up their goods for the day. The excitement of their discovery hung in the air, but so did the risk of exposure. They needed allies, and they needed them fast. Upon arriving at the Gilded Star, the tavern's entrance was adorned with intricate carvings that hinted at a rich history. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, with flickering candles casting soft shadows across the rustic wooden tables. The tavern was buzzing with conversation, laughter echoing from various corners as patrons shared stories over tankards of ale. "Let's find a corner table," Leora suggested, her eyes scanning the room. "We don't want to attract too much attention." They settled into a secluded booth at the back, the dim light providing just enough visibility for their discussion. Eric took a moment to observe the patrons around them. Some were laughing heartily, while others engaged in hushed conversations, their expressions serious. It was a microcosm of the rebellion brewing beneath the surface of Lith. "Now that we have the Starstone," Leora began, leaning forward, "we need to find out what it reveals. We can't confront Talion without knowing how he'll react. He's already watching us, and we need to anticipate his moves." Eric nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We should seek out allies within the dissidents who can help us decipher the Starstone's power. If we can understand its potential, we'll have a better chance against Talion." As they spoke, the tavern door swung open, and a figure stepped inside, shaking off the chill of the evening air. It was Mira, her presence commanding immediate attention. She spotted Eric and Leora and made her way over, a determined look in her eyes. "I've been searching for you," she said, sliding into the booth beside them. "I heard whispers that Talion's enforcers are out in force tonight, looking for anyone associated with the Queen's legacy. We need to move quickly." "What do you mean?" Eric asked, concern flooding his voice. "What do they know?" "Rumors are spreading," Mira replied, her tone serious. "Word is that someone has seen you two in the company of dissidents. Talion's enforcers will not hesitate to apprehend anyone who poses a threat to his ambitions. We have to stay one step ahead." Leora's eyes widened, fear creeping into her expression. "We can't let him find us. We need to decipher the Starstone before it's too late." Mira reached into her satchel and produced a small crystal, glowing softly in her palm. "This is a focus crystal. It can amplify the Starstone's energy, allowing you to access its secrets more easily, but you must use it wisely. The power contained within can be overwhelming. Thank you, Eric said, accepting the crystal. With this, we might be able to understand what the Starstone has to reveal about Talion and the Guardians. As they plotted their next move, the door swung open once again, and a group of hooded figures entered. Eric's heart raced as he recognized one of them, a member of the Council's enforcement team, identifiable by the insignia on his cloak. The tension in the tavern thickened as patrons went silent, sensing the danger that had just entered. "We need to get out of here," Eric urged, adrenaline surging through him. Mira nodded, her expression grave. "Follow my lead. We'll slip out the back and make our way to a safe house I know." They slipped out of their booth and navigated through the shadows at the back of the tavern, careful not to attract attention. As they neared the rear exit, Eric glanced back and saw the enforcer scanning the room, eyes narrowed and calculating. The slightest hesitation could spell disaster. "Go," Mira whispered urgently, and they burst through the door into the cool night air, racing down the alley behind the tavern. "Where to now?" Leora asked, her breath coming in quick gasps as they hurried through the maze of back streets. "There's an old hideout not far from here," Mira explained, leading the way. "It's a safe spot for the dissidents, and they can help us decipher the Starstone." As they rounded a corner, they heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind them. "They're coming," Eric shouted, pushing himself to run faster. The adrenaline coursed through him as they weaved through the narrow alleyways, the enforcers' shouts echoing off the walls. Just when it seemed they would be cornered, Mira led them into a hidden passageway that opened into a concealed courtyard. The entrance was obscured by overgrown vines, and the air felt charged with secrecy. "Quick, inside," she urged, and they slipped into the darkened space, pressing against the cold stone walls. Once they were safely hidden, Mira took a moment to catch her breath. "This way leads to the underground tunnels used by the dissidents. We should be safe here for now." Leora looked at Eric, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "What if they find us? We can't afford to be captured. Talion won't just imprison us, he'll silence us for good." "We need to keep moving," Eric said, his voice steady. "We can't let fear control us. If we're going to reclaim our future, we have to take risks." Mira nodded, her resolve evident. "I'll lead you to the safe house. We'll regroup there and plan our next steps. The Starstone will guide us." As they navigated through the underground tunnels, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the city above faded into the distance. The darkness enveloped them, but it felt like a cloak of protection, a reminder that they were in the heart of the resistance, surrounded by those who shared their goals. After what felt like an eternity of winding paths, they arrived at a small, unassuming door marked with a simple symbol, a star encircled by a crescent moon. Mira knocked softly, and after a moment, the door creaked open to reveal a dimly lit room filled with the warm glow of lanterns. Inside, a group of familiar faces greeted them, expressions filled with concern and hope. "You made it," one of the scholars exclaimed, relief washing over her features. "We feared the council had caught you." "We had a close call," Eric admitted, taking a deep breath. "But we have the Starstone and a focused crystal. We need to understand what it reveals about Talion's plans." The room fell silent as they gathered around a central table, the air thick with anticipation. Eric placed the Starstone and focused crystal on the table, and the scholars leaned closer, their eyes reflecting the light of the gems. Mira stepped forward, her expression resolute. "With these artifacts, we can tap into their power, but we must do so carefully. The Starstone will reveal truths, but it will also expose us to the forces that seek to keep those truths hidden." Leora nodded, her heart racing. "Let's begin. We need to know how Talion plans to use his influence and what we can do to stop him." With the scholars' guidance, they began to arrange the crystals and activate the Starstone. The room grew dim as the light from the gems intensified, casting intricate patterns on the walls. Eric felt the energy pulsating around them, a tangible force that filled the space with anticipation. As they focused their thoughts on the Starstone, a vision began to form. Images danced before their eyes, visions of the past and hints of the future. They saw a grand council chamber, filled with representatives in heated debate. In the center stood Talion, his expression smug and self-assured, surrounded by allies who whispered and plotted in the shadows. "Look," Eric murmured, pointing to the vision. "He's consolidating power, manipulating the council to serve his own interests." The scholars watched intently, their expressions growing more serious. "If he's gaining allies within the council, we must expose him before it's too late," Mira urged. The vision shifted, revealing an underground meeting. Talion surrounded by figures shrouded in darkness. Their conversation was muted, but the tension was palpable. A map lay before them, dotted with locations across Lith. Eric felt a knot of dread in his stomach. "What are they planning?" Leora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're plotting something big," one of the scholars whispered. "We need to know what those locations are. If Talion is marking targets, it could mean he plans to eliminate any opposition." As the vision faded, the room fell into a hushed silence. Eric's heart raced. "We have to find a way to intercept that meeting. If we can gather evidence and expose Talion's plans to the public, we might be able to turn the tide in our favor." Mira nodded, her expression fierce. "I have contacts within the city who can help us. We'll need to act quickly, gather intel, and expose his betrayal before he can solidify his power." With their plan taking shape, Eric felt a surge of hope. They had faced danger and uncertainty, but they were not alone. The strength of the dissidents and the power of the Starstone united them in their quest for justice. "Tonight, we prepare," Eric declared, determination fueling his words. "We'll gather whatever information we can and ensure that Talion's reign of fear comes to an end, for the legacy of the Guardians and the future of Lith." With that, the scholars rallied around them, their spirits ignited by the prospect of rebellion. Together, they would weave a tapestry of resistance against the looming threat, standing firm against the storm that was rising on the horizon. The journey had only just begun, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With the Starstone illuminating their path, they were united in purpose, fueled by the promise of a brighter future.